Your grandfather in textbooks is a hero in a clean tunic, but in the stench of a trench, he was a cynical looter. World War II soldiers threw their issued junk into the mud the moment they saw something truly valuable on an enemy corpse. In hell, there was no patriotism toward government-issued iron. Survival instinct and trophy fever ruled the day. We have stripped history of its glossy propaganda. The weapons of that war aren't museum exhibits, they were perfect tools for turning humans into biomass. While you believe fairy tales about German genius or Soviet might, the actual combatants of 1944 voted with their blood, choosing the enemy's guns over their own. We are beginning a hard-hitting breakdown of the steel monsters that dictated the rules of the game in humanity's bloodiest meat grinder. No ideology, just the dry calculation of killing efficiency and facts for which you could be shot by your own side on the front lines. We won't start with cannons. The most prestigious and terrifying trophy was a simple piece of sharpened steel, born from a fight with a 1,000-pound enraged predator. Are you ready to learn why an American piece of iron became a nightmare for the Wehrmacht? American propaganda hammered it home. This knife could take down an enraged grizzly. The Germans, taking it from captured Marines, didn't laugh at the stories. They used this cleaver to split the skulls of those who believed it was just a kitchen utensil. The Ka-Bar isn't about elegant fencing. It's about raw violence. It got its name after a rugged hunter literally scratched out a story on paper about how he killed a killer bear with an old knife from the Union Cutlery Company. The name Ka-Bar, killer bear, became a religion. High-carbon steel turned it into a universal nightmare. They used it to hack through barbed wire, pry open ammo crates like a crowbar, and butcher enemy corpses without fear of dulling the blade. Germans went mad for this trophy, realizing that their standard-issue shanks were just toothpicks for waiters compared to the American. But a knife is a last resort of despair. It's far more interesting to look at the elite sector. Did you know that the Reich's most beautiful pistol could turn into a useless piece of metal from a single stray grain of sand? The most coveted souvenir of World War II, for which collectors today are willing to sell a kidney, was often a death sentence for its owner on the front lines. The German Luger represented status, elegance, and absolute helplessness in real mud. The P-08 looks like a work of art, but war is not an exhibition in Dresden. Its toggle lock action is a triumph of engineering insanity for the conditions of trench slaughter. A single grain of sand stuck in the open mechanism turned this symbol of power into an expensive brass knuckle toy. The Germans were so terrified of its delicate psyche that they crafted airtight coffin holsters for it. But even that didn't save it. Due to the manual fitting of parts, the Luger was a temperamental psychopath. Components from one pistol often wouldn't fit another. While Wehrmacht officers were posturing with their chic sidearms, smart soldiers were looking for something more down to earth. While the Krauts were picking at their Lugers with toothpicks, the Belgians and Americans rolled out a monster that didn't care about clean hands and offered the soldier twice the chance of survival. Are you ready to see the first true high-tech of that war? In 1935, the world was still living in the Stone Age, trusting its life to a measly 8 rounds in a magazine. Then the high power appeared and offered the soldier 13. In the conditions of urban combat, this wasn't just an advantage, it was a legal God-mode cheat for immortality. The Browning high power became a true apple of discord. The British adored it, and the SS fought for it after seizing the factories in Belgium. While everyone else was frantically reloading after 5 to 7 shots, the Browning owner continued to methodically pump the enemy full of lead. It was as simple as a brick and as reliable as an axe. Minimum parts, maximum stopping power. This pistol didn't need to be pampered in a closed holster and wiped with silk. It was built to fire when everything around was covered in mud and blood. It was the first truly modern pistol in history, next to which the others looked like antiques. Pistols are just for officer skirmishes, though. The real chaos on the front line began when a steel perforator emerged from Soviet basements assembled by yesterday's schoolchildren from scrap metal and the offcuts of old rifles. It's time to meet Papa. How do you humiliate Europe's most technological army? You give a starving laborer in the rear a sawn-in-half rifle from the era of the Tsars and tell him to turn it into a submachine gun. The result forced the Germans to ditch their polished MP-40S and grab the Soviet perforator with trembling hands. The PPSH-41, affectionately known as Papasha, Papa, was pure rage cast in cheap metal. Soviet engineers didn't stand on ceremony. The barrels were often sawn out of defective or old Mosin-Nagant rifles. It was so primitive that it could be assembled in furniture factories, yet in battle, this ugly duckling spat out 900 rounds per minute. The 71-round drum magazine turned any infantryman into a walking turret. While the German soldier was conserving ammo in his Schmeisser, the Soviet soldier simply flooded the trench with a rain of lead, never worrying about cleaning or lubrication. The PPSH ate dirt and kept spitting death. But if the PPSH was a sledgehammer for the proletariat, the Americans had their own legend. A high-status gun straight out of Hollywood action movies with a price tag that could buy a small mansion. Was the Tommy gun worth its astronomical cost in the mud of the jungle? The legend of the Chicago underworld in the hands of a Marine. The Tommy gun cost as much as a brand new Ford, but on the front lines it either turned you into an angel of death or a sweaty loser hauling 5 kilograms of useless iron. The Thompson M1928A1 was prestige cast in steel. The gangster icon with its 100-round drum magazine only looked impressive in Al Capone movies. In reality, soldiers cursed that drum. It rattled like a bucket of bolts when walking and jammed if you so much as sneezed on it. But when it came to point-blank fire, the Tommy justified every cent. The .45 caliber bullet stopped an enemy as if they'd been hit by a truck. It was a weapon for those who weren't used to counting taxes or ammunition, expensive, heavy, and hellishly fierce. Submachine guns are fun for spray and pray. But what do you do when the enemy is dug in 500 meters away, laughing at your short barrel? At that moment, the Garand enters the stage, the rifle that made the world forget about manual reloading forever. While the rest of the world was frantically working bolts like paranoiacs, the Americans simply pulled the trigger, turning the war into a semi-automatic shooting gallery. The Garand was the rifle that turned the US infantryman into a cyborg compared to enemies stuck in the past. The M1 Garand was the first real step toward modern annihilation. While a German or a Japanese soldier wasted precious seconds manually reloading after every shot, the American delivered a string of 8 precise bullets in seconds. It was a technological slap in the face. The rifle used the energy of its own gases to prep the next shot for you. But this triumph had a treacherous quirk, the famous metallic ping of the ejecting empty clip. Legend has it that experienced enemies waited for that sound to jump out and shoot the empty Yankee. More often than not, however, they simply didn't live long enough to hear it. But even the fastest firing rifle is child's play compared to what the Germans called the bone cutter. Are you ready to hear a sound that doesn't resemble gunfire, but rather the ripping jaws of the devil himself? You didn't hear shots, you heard the sound of ripping canvas or a giant circular saw. If that raspy howl echoed across the battlefield, it meant Hitler's buzzsaw had already begun turning your comrades into bloody mincemeat at a rate of 1,500 bodies per minute. The MG-42 was pure distilled terror. While Allied machine guns chattered politely, this monster spat out 25 bullets per second. The human ear couldn't distinguish individual reports, only a solid drone of death. The Germans created the perfect industrial tool for infantry disposal. Replacing a white-hot barrel took 5 seconds, and bipods or tripods turned it from an assault weapon into an anti-aircraft gun. American recruits were specifically trained to recognize this sound so they wouldn't freeze in shock. But in reality, only luck or artillery helped against the buzzsaw. It was the pinnacle of the Third Reich's engineering cynicism. The MG-42 dictated the terms of the game, but war is about more than just raw specs. There existed a shadow economy of the front lines. You won't believe the depths of treachery soldiers reached to steal weapons from the enemy, or even more dangerously, from their own supply lines. Forget the fairy tales about noble warriors faithful to their issued sidearms. The front was a giant black market where the currency was your own life. Soldiers stole, traded, and framed one another for courts-martial just for a single chance to grab a gun that wouldn't fail them in the decisive second. Trophy hunting was the official sport of World War II. German paratroopers, the elite of the Reich, didn't give a damn about regulations and rearmed themselves en masse with Soviet PPSHs because their own MP-40S felt like children's toys in close-quarters combat. Our scouts, in turn, hunted for German optics and silenced pistols, despising government property. The enemy's weapon always seemed more effective, but it wasn't just envy. Standard-issue gear was often the result of corruption and budget cutting by supply officers, so soldiers turned into armed scavenger looters, assembling a lethal kit from whatever they could rip from the hands of the dead. Do you think this craving for old iron stayed in the past along with the black and white photos? You are dead wrong. Right now, while you are watching this video, some of these old-timers are still knocking the teeth out of modern armor all over the world. You think this is dusty history from a grandfather's trunk? Right now, in 2026, somewhere in the sands of the Middle East or the jungles of Myanmar, people are being disemboweled by these antique barrels just as briskly as they were 80 years ago. Death doesn't age. The genius of killing embedded in the 1940s proved to be an unreachable bar for modern marketers. The German MG42 lives on today in the form of the MG3, which is in service with dozens of countries, simply because no one could invent a better meat grinder. The American Mastodon, the Browning High Power, officially retired only recently, but its copies continue to be churned out in underground workshops across the globe. In these pieces of iron, there is no excess plastic or bloated tech, only raw mechanics designed to survive in the mud. While modern engineers rack their brains over smart scopes, the good old iron of World War II continues to effectively zero out human lives in the wildest corners of the planet. This legacy is terrifying and fascinating at the same time. But enough with the lyricism. It's time to drop the masks and deliver the final verdict. If tomorrow you had to step into a real hell, which of these tools would you grab to stay alive? Stop worshipping brands and believing advertising brochures. In this arms race, the winners weren't those who drew beautiful blueprints in offices, but those who taught iron to kill as cheaply and reliably as possible. It's time to settle the final score. If we strip away the drama, the best weapon of World War II wasn't the most accurate or the most beautiful, but the one that didn't turn into a useless stick in the decisive second. Who won this bloody tally? The Reich's engineers with their over-engineered Lugers, or the Soviet factories churning out millions of papashas from pipe scraps? The truth is cynical. The winner was the one who could flood the front with working metal that didn't require a physics degree to clean. We compared production costs, magazine capacities, and real-world survivability. The bottom line, only 3 or 4 models from our list were actually worth dying for. The rest is marketing garbage, bloated by historians. Do you still believe that your favorite gun from a video game would save you in a real trench? Tell us in the comments which of these tools you consider the most ruthless and effective. We've reached the finale, but the truth about these steel killers goes much deeper than it seems. A weapon doesn't make you a hero. It doesn't choose who is right or wrong. It simply keeps you alive a little longer than the person standing opposite you. For now, we have concluded our excursion into the world of ideal killers created in an era when human life was worth less than a 9mm round. These pieces of iron have outlived their creators, their owners, and will likely outlive you and me. The history of World War II isn't just about dates and flags over cities. It is, above all, the history of lead-shattering bone. We are used to romanticizing war through monitor screens, but for a soldier in 1945, the best weapon was the one that allowed him to live until dawn and eat his portion of porridge. Metal is cold and impartial. It knows no mercy. It only obediently executes the will of the person whose finger is on the trigger. Think the madness of engineering ended there. In the next episode, we'll pull back the curtain on aviation. You'll learn about the planes that were so defective they killed their own pilots more often than the enemies in the sky. Subscribe if you're ready to find out which flying coffin your idol was piloting.